Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Dracolin here, bringing you the latest in Carenado's Turbo Commander 690B, just released today for X-Plane 11. You can find it at carenado.com for $37.95. So this is version 1.0, only for X-Plane 11. And Carenado says they're bringing you state-of-the-art, configurable, FPS-friendly logic system. It's fully VR capable and full PBR. So it's specially designed engine dynamics for X-Plane 11, flight physics optimized for X-Plane 11 standards, and ground handling adapted for X-Plane ground physics. It comes with an X-Plane GNS 530 friendly, and it also supports Reality XP's GTN 750 as integrated into a 3D cockpit when available. Realistic behavior compared to the real airplane. Realistic weight and balance tested by several pilots for maximum accuracy. Well, let's jump into the cockpit here and see what we're looking at. So far, the textures and the lighting are just absolutely amazing. I've been combing over the aircraft myself and checking out some of the systems one thing at a time, and I have to say I am absolutely impressed. I have to admit this is actually my first purchase from Carenado. I have to say I have never purchased anything from them before throughout the years, so for me this is actually a first, but I'm excited. It just came out today, and I wanted to go over the systems reference tutorial and just provide a quick tutorial over the systems reference for those that don't like to read or don't want to have to read. I figured we would cover everything really quick in this tutorial, so that way any of you that are a first-time Turbo Commander 690B user as myself, this will give you just a quick tutorial of what Carenado has decided to cover in the systems reference tutorial. So it looks like Carenado has equipped the 690B in true commander form. It's got an array of avionics from Garmin, Bendix King, as well as Avidyne, as you can see. And just to be clear, I have yet to power up the Turbo Commander 690B myself, so I cannot vouch for the capabilities of any of the various avionics as to whether Carenado has simulated these systems fully functional. I do, however, promise to cover to the best of my ability in future upcoming tutorial videos. As I myself continue to delve into the aircraft, I'm going to have to learn each of the systems myself. But like I said, I purchased this thing earlier today, and I have just been combing over all of the data as much as I can, trying to master as much of the information as I can about each of the avionics that are installed, as well as the aircraft itself, considering I have, like I said, never flown a TC690B before. But so far I'm absolutely impressed. I haven't even turned the aircraft on yet. I really just wanted to go over the systems reference tutorial with all of you, and included with that just go over some of the avionics real quick. They don't really cover that in the tutorial, but I wanted to bring it here. So as you can see below, starting with Bendix King installed is the KX165 TSO Navcom transceiver with glide slope, and the KN64 DME. That should be capable of providing DME information for all the 200 nav channels as well as external channeling. So if fully functional, you should be able to tune in directly, which lets you monitor your position relative to other VORs while still navigating towards your primary VOR station. Following up with the Bendix, we have, as you can see, the KR87 ADF receiver for those pesky NDB stations. On the other hand, NDBs are more commonly used in GA flights, and I have to be honest, a VOR DME ARC approach is something that I myself am excited to try in the Turbo Commander. It definitely reminds me of when I did my IFR training in the twin engine Piper Seminole. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. For navigation, Carenado has equipped the Turbo Commander with a Garmin GNS 530. Like I said, with the optional GTN 750 capability for Reality XP owners. Anyone interested in purchasing the GTN 750, I'll leave a link in the description below for you guys. So continuing with Garmin, installed is the Garmin GTX 327 Mode-C transponder with ADS-B capability. I'm excited to test the functionality, the various options that the 327 comes with. Granted that it's actually been simulated. I'll actually know that when I start delving more into it and upload more tutorial videos, and I'll cover what is functional and what isn't, of course, as the tutorial videos continue. So last on the avionics tour, we have the Avidyne, the EX600 multifunction display. Now it's capable of providing a vast array of information such as weather, traffic, special use airspace, terrain, electronic charts, METARs, tasks, winds aloft, and so much more. It has an easy to view moving map that is functional and will allow for the EX600's map panning feature, which should allow you to access the moving map along your route of flight. So this piece of equipment is completely new to me, like I said, so if anyone is interested in a tutorial video on the capabilities of the EX600 as simulated by Carenado on the 690B, just leave a comment below. I'll try to master, I won't try, I will master its functionality as simulated and upload a tutorial video. As like I said, the E600 does offer, it's just an amazing array of features that it offers. So if it's actually been functionalized by Carenado, I will cover it because, like I said, there's a plethora of information that we can go over. Most of you already know about the Garmin GNS 530. If not, there is a ton of videos on YouTube in order to update you on the functionality of that, how to use it. So I'm not really going to cover a tutorial video on that. I feel like it's already been done so many times. If you want me to, leave a comment below and I will do so. But as far as the Avidyne E600, I don't know how many airplanes out there are simulated with this version of the multifunction display. I don't know if there's very many videos on YouTube. I did not look that up. But either way, if any of you like, I will delve into that to the best of my ability, of course, and upload a full tutorial video on the full capabilities of the E600 as simulated by Carenado. So without further ado, I definitely want to go over everything that is covered in the systems reference. It is not very long, but they do cover the systems, you know, and just kind of like a Reader's Digest, you know, just here's a quick Reader's Digest version of this is what you get and this is what it does. So with that, I want to take us to the throttle quadrant for the 690B. Basically has a power lever and a speed lever for each engine. And the engine speed lever controls engine speed in the upper part of its range and allows for emergency engine shutdown and propeller feathering in the lower part of its range. Flight operations are conducted at an RPM range of typically about 96% to 100%, while ground operations are conducted in low ground range. All right, now you can easily adjust the speed levers as you want in X-Plane using the keyboard or your joystick or your propeller controls if you have those. If you don't, you can simply just use your F2 and F1 to control the engine, the throttle quadrant, and for the speed levers you can just use F3 and F4 if you want to do them both. You can also control them via your mouse, of course. If you see the little cross come up, you can do both at the same time. You can do one at a time. Same thing with the speed lever. You can do both, or you can do one at a time, depending on what best suits you. So going over the electrical system, it's pretty basic. DC power supplied by two 28 volt 300 amp generators and two 24 volt batteries, yes. And you can see it on the gauges right here as far as your volts and your amps. Like I said, it's just two 28 volt 300 amp generators and two 24 volt batteries. The system itself is divided into 4 main buses. You have your battery control, distribution, and cabin. And it looks like we have 2 radio buses as well on the upper right hand. And the radio buses are considered to always be tied in X-Plane. So just want to throw that out there so you guys know that the radio buses are considered to always be tied. That's just how X-Plane is. Now, it does offer a full graphic for you in the systems reference PDF as far as the electrical system goes for the panel control bus on both sides, the overhead panel control bus for the radio buses for number 1 and 2, cabin bus, and of course for your distribution. So for those of you that are electrical engineers, you can have fun taking a look at that. Further down, it looks like, what's next here? We'll go ahead and talk about what each of the buses do, okay? Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. And let me just see which one I want to start off with here. Alright, let's just start with the control bus. Control, distribution, tie, and then main, because they're pretty simple. That way we'll go from the one that controls the most amount of buses to the least amount of buses. How's that? And the one that controls the most amount of buses is, what do you guess? The control. So it controls the door lock, the cabin lights, the panel lights, position and nav lights, the anti-collision lights, which is basically your beacon light. Controls your strobe lights and the left landing lights. The distribution bus is for your left and right engine inlet heaters, the left and right pitot fuel vent heaters, the right landing light, wing ice light, and the defog blower. And the cabin bus is for the reading lights, the right windshield heater, and the credenza light. I always like that word, credenza. And the main bus is pretty much all the remaining electrical items and other, that's other than avionics. So the tie switch ties the control and the distribution buses together. So if the tie switch is on and either bus is powered, the other bus is also powered. What else is there? Close that out and bring that up. So for the external power, you do have an external power option. As you can see, we have 3 little selector windows over here. So when you're flying, you can automatically bring up your autopilot, which we'll go over further in detail later. Your camera views, let me just warn you, if these are automatically set, okay? So if you go through and manually set it up, like I do, if you're going to use control and your numlock keys, then it does unfortunately overwrite these previously saved options that are here. As you can see, my pilot view is no longer my pilot view. Throttle is no longer my throttle. Left rear passenger view is no longer the left rear passenger view. So if you do that, it will overwrite these field of views. Nope, yep, I did overwrite all of them, so you can't even see the tail wheel. But you can also adjust the volume as well here, up and down. And for your options, you basically have window reflections, instrument reflections. The static elements that are outside the aircraft can be removed. The pilot door, the baggage door, and then we have external power on here. And you can also change your liveries as well here without having to go through the X-Plane options. So in order to activate external power, you're basically just going to click on that. You'll hear it. You can hear it winding up. And very simple, external power is available via the external power switch located on the upper left-hand quadrant of the overhead panel. All right, this serves to place the batteries in either parallel or series for starting the engines. And for parallel, it's the normal position for starting the engines. When the outside air temperature is between 0 degrees Celsius and 31 degrees Celsius. So this position also connects to external power while the plane is on the ground. So you're more than likely, in almost any scenario, going to be using parallel. Now as far as the series option goes, this is when the outside air temperature is either below 0 degrees Celsius or above 31 degrees Celsius. So this position will also turn off external power while the plane is on the ground. So that's for series, that's for parallel, and that's basically your two options. Go ahead and wind that down. I know a lot of people complain about, not a lot of people, but when I was buying this plane, I was doing a lot of research because I wanted something else to throw into my pool of planes for X-Plane 11. Right now I basically fly the IXEG 737, and that's pretty much about it. I jump back over into FS10, where I'm usually flying the Majestic Dash AQ 400 or the PMDG. But as I was watching Carenado videos on planes and a bunch of other videos, because I wanted, like I said, I wanted to increase my pool of videos, and I'll keep this short. I know this is a tutorial video. I just happened to come across, I don't even know what I came across as far as learning that Carenado had just released the 690B this morning for X-Plane 11. I was just searching a whole bunch of stuff, and it popped up, and I started looking for tutorial videos, and there was only a couple of tutorial videos for the 690B when it came out in FS10 last year. And there's no tutorial videos really out there at all for X-Plane 10 that I could find. Not X-Plane, I'm sorry, for FS10. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video. But anyway, I had come across people not really liking the sounds that are with Carenado. It's like they're just generic, you know. So I can't attest to that, but I'll tell you, that sound right there was actually pretty cool to me, you know. And I haven't flown a lot of general aviation aircraft, not since FS 2004, so it's been many, many, many years for me. But I am excited to hear some of the sounds. Again, this is version 1.0. There may be quite a few bugs to fix, and we're going to learn all of those together as we delve more into this aircraft. I'm going to stop yip-yakking and let's get back onto it. We're going to go into the upper right-hand quadrant of the overhead panel, and we're going to discuss the avionics buses. AC power is supplied to the avionics by an inverter, and in the event of failure of the operating inverter, the pilot can select any of the three positions on the switch on the right overhead panel. As you can see, that's our first switch on the upper right hand is the inverter. And radios 1 and 2 buses are pretty much tied together as a single bus in X-Plane. So just to let you know that out there, it is just a single bus. The autopilot is provided by the autopilot switch. Radio altimeter is activated by the radio out switch. And then the in-out switch is basically just an extra switch for what they said was optional equipment that is not installed. We'll have to delve more into that and get you more information on that one. Moving over to the ice protection, the Turbo Commander is equipped with a capable known icing ice protection system. So that's awesome. That's great. Whether or not it's actually going to be simulated as to whether you can see it on the wings or on the propellers, that is yet to be seen. Haven't yet seen it in any of the planes that I have flown in X-Plane 11, but it was nicely simulated in the Majestic AQ400 for FS10, of course. So looking at the ice protection, we have the left windshield and right windshield, which basically provides electrical power for the windshield heating elements. We have rudder, engine inlet for left and right, pitot fuel and vent left and right, and it will also provide heaters for the pitot tubes and the fuel vents. So for the generator inlet, it's basically just electrical heat for the generator's cooling air inlet. Unfortunately, the functionality doesn't exist in X-Plane, but luckily the amperage can be viewed in the small ammeter gauge that you can see in the right-hand side. Just to the right of the switches, when the prop gen switch is in the gen position, as well as the prop position, and I'll go over that just a little bit further as we delve into the avionics. The prop switch is for the electrical propeller heating elements, so as long as the switch is on, then the propeller heating elements will automatically heat each propeller on a 30-second cycle. The left propeller is de-iced first, and then the right side. For the boots, basically it will control the de-ice for the boots. So it's located on the leading edges of the wings and the tail surfaces. So the way it works is the switch is spring loaded to the middle off position. So a single press to the upper 1 cycle position will automatically engage a single cycle of the boots. It lasts about 15 seconds. So the pilot can press the switch again to engage another cycle as soon as it finishes and needs as needed. Like I said, you press it, 15 seconds. It'll spring load back to the middle off position. You can press it again, and it'll do it for another 15 seconds, and boom, switch back down. And like I said, you can just continually cycle as needed. Unfortunately, the manual position is not simulated, but that's because it's due to the way X-Plane simulates the de-icing boots. So no fault to Carenado, unfortunately. Maybe in future updates through X-Plane, we'll see the capabilities for that. But what would typically happen in the real world is once you place that in the manual position, it would inflate the boots as long as the switch was held. So you hold it down and the boots would inflate, and once you released it, the boots would deflate. So I guess you could see why that's not simulated, but then again, seems like it could be a simple fix in the future. The wing light, I don't know if it's simulated. Like I said, I haven't even turned this aircraft on, but of course, the wing light will allow you to turn on the wing light at night so you can see if there is any ice building up on the aircraft, and you can see what the condition of the icing is after you have activated the boots. And the defog blower, of course, I don't know if it's simulated. It doesn't talk about it in the systems reference tutorial, and you cannot click it on or off either. So I am assuming that that is not functional, unfortunately. So going back to the the ammeter gauge for the prop engine, just to the right of the ice protection switches. So the small ammeter and the prop gen switch on the right side of the de-ice panel is used to observe the amperage and of the propeller de-ice elements or the generator cooling inlet de-ice elements, depending on the position of the switch. So either system should draw approximately 14 to 18 amps while active. So you can test both of them and see how many amps are drawing. And as it states, it should be between 14 and 18 amps. And continuing on with the left and right engine for the starter switches. The starter mode switches control the fuel pumps, and they pretty much initiate the automatic starting sequence, and it has 4 cycles. Engine off, fuel pump on, air, and ground. So for engine off, it turns off the ignition, turns off the fuel pumps, and it turns off the fuel to that particular engine. So this position is typically used to shut down the engine after a flight. For air, we basically use this for air starts. What it does not engage the starter motor, okay? Because what they're counting on is for the windmilling of the propeller is expected to rotate the engine, actually. So the position automatically sequences the igniters and fuel on. And what happens is the fuel comes on above 10% RPM and then turns the igniters off when it's above 50% RPM. So as far as ground goes, ground is going to be your normal position for starting and running the engines. When the knob is turned to ground, the starter motor engages. Once the RPM is above 10%, the igniters and the fuel are turned on. And then, of course, once it accelerates above 50%, the starter and the igniters are disengaged. So the ignition switch controls the igniters and has 3 positions. It's override, normal, and motor. So override, this is pretty much going to be, this is what turns the igniters on all the time. Normal is going to be the normal position for flight, and like I said, the igniters automatically come on below 50%. And as far as motor, the igniters and the starter fuel are disabled, allowing the pilot to activate the starter to rotate and cool the engine without allowing combustion. Something we're definitely going to test in future tutorial videos, because I would like to see how that works. Especially after maybe having a hot start, or maybe it's a day where it's really hot and you want to kind of cool the engines down. I want to see if the motor function is actually going to be simulated. That's pretty much it for the overhead panel as far as what is covered in the systems reference tutorial. We've covered as far as what the generator, the buses for the avionics, the ice protection, and the left and right start switches. The lights are pretty much, of course, self-explanatory. You have your seatbelt sign, you have your cabin lights, your panel lights, your position lights, your anti-collision lights, which functionize as your standard beacon light, and of course your strobe lights. If you guys have any questions about anything that's covered in the overhead panel, please leave me a comment below, of course, and I will do my best to find you that answer. So give me 1 second here. We're going to be moving on. We're going to cover just a little bit of the fuel system. As soon as I close a few windows. I had a ton of windows open while I was doing all of this research. So I just want to get some of them closed. So that way I can find what I need to find. Perfect, perfect. All right, all right, all right. So moving down, we're going to cover two things on the fuel. Basically, 2 of the gauges that are provided to us, and one of the 2 is the fuel totalizer, which is actually located in the top center of the screen. and our fuel quantity indicator. Very easy in this aircraft. The fuel system for the Turbo Commander is actually really simple. It consists basically just 22 individual fuel cells in the wings and the fuselage that are interconnected to form a single tank. You have 10 on the left, 10 on the right, and 2 in the center. And I kind of wanted to show you guys so you could get a better picture of what I'm talking about when I say 22 individual fuel cells. What is that? So yeah, there are 22 individual fuel cells, 10 on each wing, 2 on the center, and that are all interconnected to form pretty much the single tank. And this is what it looks like. So it's laid out just kind of like a deck of cards. You can see on the outboard part of the wing, on each wing you have 6 fuel cells, and on the inboard part of the wing inside the engines you have 8, and then in the center you have your upper and lower. And these are basically just the 22 fuel cells that are interconnected to create just one giant tank in each engine. For the 690B, we have, it looks like, if I remember right, we got a total of 384 US gallons, which equates to approximately 2,573 pounds of Jet A fuel. And fuel is supplied to each engine pretty much by a pair of engine-driven mechanical pumps. And we also have, of course, our automatic fuel pumps as well. So, and a pair of electrical auxiliary pumps, which are controlled by these starter mode switches, as we saw earlier. Pretty much is what you use on takeoff, on landing, and then of course during flight your fuel is provided by your engine-driven mechanical pumps. So as I talked about earlier, so the fuel totalizer in the top center of the panel, it indicates the total fuel burned. So we can reset it pretty much by pressing the lever that's located below the digits. You hold it down, it'll reset it, you'll let it go, and you're good to go. So the Turbo Commander, very simple. It'll burn approximately 250 pounds per hour per engine in cruise, of course, depending on power settings. 55, 65, 75% power. So your flights can be planned to be around 500 pounds per hour total. So it's stated that with full tanks, you have about 4 hours of fuel plus 1 hour of reserve. So that means pretty much, barring that nothing goes wrong, you can fly for 4 hours, 4.5 hours during the day, and 4 hours and 15 minutes at night in order to meet your fuel reserve. Like I said, that's granted you. That's something I wouldn't do in real life, but granted you could do it. That's fine, but I wouldn't push those limits. You always want to make sure that you're not exceeding your limits as a pilot. I know that during the daytime you need to be able to take off, fly, and land from your origin to your destination and have at least 30 minutes of fuel and 45 minutes at night. But I would probably double that. I would suggest maintaining, at least 45 minutes to an hour during the day, and probably about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes at night, maybe even more at night, because you never know when you're going to get lost, when a VOR might be down, when you run into bad weather, when you fly into unknown terrain, you get into an area you're unfamiliar with. You do not want to find yourself closer to that reserve point going into a condition like that. So you always want to use good decision-making skills and plan ahead, even in the simulation world, I think, because if you're willing to do that in your simulator, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be willing to do that in the real world. So as far as the let's see, let's go over the HP limiter. So in the upper left-hand quadrant of the panel, you can see HP times 100. So the engines on the 690B are equipped with a horsepower limiter, which will decrease the available fuel to the engines if they detect an over torque situation. So you got to note that the limiters will only limit torque, all right? They will not limit the temperature of the engine. So it's still the pilot's responsibility to ensure that no limits are exceeded. So you want to pay attention to not only the horsepower limiter, but you want to pay attention to your oil temperature gauge, your oil pressure gauge, your fuel gauge, which doesn't have anything to do with the horsepower limiter, of course, but you want to maintain all of the other various known elements on your own. Your RPM, yada, yada, yada. All right. So in order to test this, what we need to do is we can test whether the HP limiters are working. So this can be conducted on the ground by placing the engine speed levers to high and then increasing the speed lever slightly, pretty much to achieve 100% RPM. So we do have an HP limit switch located in the upper left-hand quadrant of the, they're located on the left and right side of the engine start switches. How about that? Let's just make it easy on you. You can see HP limit switch, and it has two positions. I think it's just the two positions, right? Yeah. Yeah, pretty much just on off. So the HP limit switch is in the test position. What'll happen is you'll see a gradual drop in RPM, and then the fuel flow should occur as well. So gradual drop in RPM and fuel flow as well. So it looks like, what does it say here? The pilot must be careful not to let the engine RPMs drop below 67% during the test. I don't know what happens. We'll test it out and see. Maybe it's simulated, maybe it's not. So in the on position, basically that's the normal position for the flight. And then the off, when switched off, the pilot must be careful not to exceed the maximum horsepower, which is 717.5 HP, which shows you a red line on the gauges as well. Let me see if I can get a closer look there. Yeah, 717.5 is something we don't exceed. Well, we'll test that out too and see what happens. So, All right, and then last but not least, what they cover is the Turbo Commander is also equipped with start locks. The turbo engines have start locks, which mechanically maintain the propellers in a flat pitch. And what we can do is come outside and actually take a look at that. So as you can see, that's as close as it's going to let us get. Nope, we can get closer. So there we go. The start lock system mechanically maintains the propellers in a flat pitch, minimum drag position while the engines are off. This allows for easier engine starting since the starter motor must turn the engine assembly and propeller, which makes sense, of course. The start locks are centrifugally actuated to disengage and spring actuated to engage. So in order to disengage the locks after starting, each power lever is briefly pulled into reverse while the engine is above 60% RPM. So you increase above 60% RPM, and then the power levers are pulled into reverse in order to disengage. And at the end of the flight, you'll have to re-engage the start locks during the shutdown. So each power lever is pulled back into reverse while the engine is between 60 and 30% RPM, which we'll test and simulate and do all that fun stuff. And they are left in the reverse position until the engine has slowed to less than 10% RPM. So the important part in remembering is the start locks must be disengaged before attempting to taxi or take off. They make it very clear to you that you do not want to try and taxi or take off without disengaging the start lock. So that'll be something fun, something to learn for both of us, for all of us. Last but not least, it looks like we'll go over the autopilot function. So the autopilot consists of a mode selector panel, an altitude selector, and a pitch wheel. So we got three very easiest systems here. So if you pressing one of the AP mode buttons will engage the flight director in that mode. To engage the autopilot servos, the engage/disconnect button switch must be on. So on and disengage. The modes are pretty simple. We have heading, nav, approach, altitude, indicated airspeed, and bat course. So very simple. Heading will pretty much fly to the orange heading bug that's on the pilot's HSI. For nav, the autopilot will fly the course selected on the HSI and the nav source selected in nav1. This is for both the GNS 530 unit and the GTN 750 if installed. For approach, it works the same as nav, but of course it has increased sensitivity for an ILS, and it'll automatically capture and follow a glide slope. Altitude hold. So this has two different functions. Pressing this will cause the autopilot to capture and hold the current altitude. So if the autopilot is in a pitch mode, it will automatically capture the altitude that is set in the altitude selector window. And then of course for indicated airspeed, the autopilot will hold the current airspeed, and this can be adjusted by moving the pitch wheel as well. And the pitch wheel can be used to adjust the pitch command commanded by the autopilot, as well as the airspeed if the autopilot is in IAS mode. So you can use the mouse scroll wheel to adjust the pitch up and down, and clicking it will recenter the pitch wheel. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes Carenato's Turbo Commander 690B systems reference tutorial. We've covered everything from the overhead, as far as the generators, the lights, the ice protection, the avionics, the engine start switches. We've gone over the two 28 volt 300 amp generators and the two 24 volt batteries. So we've gone over the DC power, the AC power. Wipers are, of course, pretty easy to figure out on your own. We've gone over pretty much the avionics that's been installed, as far as the GNS 530, the GNS or the GTX 327, both from Garmin, Avidyne's E600 multifunction display, EX600, excuse me. We've gone over the three Bendix King, the radios, the ADF, and the DME. I don't know if I went over the DME, did I? I believe I did mention the DME. Yes, I did. Tight and true. I mean, Bendix King has been around for a long time. They make amazing avionics. Bendix is what I used in the Piper Tomahawks that I flew when I did my flight training for my single and multi-engine commercial pilot's license. I got my private's license in the single and multi, and then I got my commercial pilot's in the single and multi. I did my IFR training in the twin-engine Piper Seminole, and we also flew a Piper Archer that was beefed up to 201 horsepower, so I got my high performance rating as well as my complex endorsement rating in that sucker. It was a lot of fun to fly. Uncomfortable as heck, I'll tell you. Those seats, it's like sitting in a lawn chair, you know, with something stabbed in the lower right part of your back. It's like, I don't know how they designed those seats, but there must have been some kind of metal mechanism in the lower right part of that thing that kind of just brought it all together, and it just, you know, after 30 years of use, you know, the seat's worn down, and that was just the worst part of flying that thing, was just having that the back that metal part sticking in there and stabbing you in the back. But I also wanted to go over just a little bit of the inside as well, and we'll show a little bit of the outside, and we'll do a little bit of the inside as well. The walk-up, thanks for the follow, man. I really appreciate it. That's awesome of you. Have you ever flown any of Carenato systems? And if so, what do you think of them? And have you heard about the new X-Plane 11 Turbo Commander 690B? So looking at the outside, it's just amazing. You have 5 different HD liveries, including one non-paint. It's still in HD, but it's completely blank. And if you want, we can cycle through all of them. And let's see here. Static elements can be turned on and off, of course, with the options panel. I think they look really cool, so I'll leave them on. Plus, for some reason earlier, I don't know what I did, but as I was kind of going over the systems and I was looking down, I looked up and realized for some reason the airplane was in this exact same situation without the static elements, and I was rolling backwards, you know, right towards that building. So I thought during the tutorial video, for some other reason, I should probably keep the chocks on. This is the walk-up. This is actually my first Carenado purchase ever. I have a lot of payware aircraft for X-Plane, not for X-Plane, I'm sorry, for Flight Simulator 10. I had a lot more for FS2000 and FS2004, but I have a decent amount in Flight Simulator 10. But of course, I just started flying X-Plane 11 not too long ago, so I don't really have very many payware aircraft. I think the only payware aircraft I own so far is the IXE G737 and Jar Design's A320, which I love. It's awesome, but it falls apart just about every time I fly it. The MCEDU dies, or the sounds will die, or something doesn't function, especially on long flights when I stream. I don't know why. When I don't stream, everything's fine, but those are the only two. And I really wanted to increase my my flying options and start flying a little lower, so I went ahead and saw that the Carenado had released the 690B and figured it would be worth it. So I bought it and just threw together a quick tutorial video, and I'll upload it to my YouTube channel so you can watch it there. So looking at the inside, it's actually pretty good. Yeah, I like it. It's detail. It's nice. I still have yet to even turn the aircraft on. I'm going to probably do that in future videos as I continue the tutorial. But the inside of the aircraft is actually really nice. I really do like it. So it'll be nice to delve into this thing and actually see the functioning of it. Carpet looks new. Everything looks pretty new. That looks good. So do you fly X-Plane 11 walk-up? The view back here is pretty good. It'll be nice to see if we can test all the lights. We'll definitely do a night flight. It looks like we have buttons on each side. Oh, for the phone, mics, stuff like that. Okay, so that's just visual. Can't open the ashtray. Hey, we got a fold-out table for each side. Nice. You can play your cards. Interesting, interesting. I wonder if we can adjust the seats at all, move them around. As we move forward, doesn't look like we can pop any of the various panels open here, unfortunately. Not a big deal. So that is the Carenado Turbo Commander 690B in all of its true form. This is pretty much going to conclude the tutorial video for the systems reference tutorial. I'm going to start delving more into this aircraft and going through all of the the starter procedures and everything, and we will of course create another tutorial video. You can always hit me up on Twitter, Dracolin1873. You can also hit me up on YouTube at /Kevin1873. Both of the links are provided below. Of course, here on Twitch. And I'm looking forward to making more videos on this aircraft and doing more tutorials for X-Plane 11, because like I said, unfortunately, there isn't a tutorial video of this thing out there. There's only a couple of videos of it even up on YouTube that were done about 11 months ago, and that was for X-Plane, not X-Plane, but for Flight Simulator 10. So it'll be nice to actually have a tutorial video for this aircraft for X-Plane 11. So like I said, anyone looking to hit up more videos, just give me some time. I'm actually going to make a late dinner since it's 8 o'clock here in California, and going to start doing more studying on this aircraft, and we'll have more tutorial videos to come. I hope you guys have a wonderful morning, just an amazing afternoon, and an awesome evening wherever you are. Once again, my name is Dracolin, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.